Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the discovery of Lascaux, how teenage boys found the greatest cave art on Earth. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. On September 12, 1940, four teenage boys, Marcel Ravidat, Jacques Marsal, Georges Agnel, and Simon Coencas, were exploring the woods near the village of Montignac in the Dordogne region of southwestern France when their dog robot fell into a hole in the ground. Retrieving the dog, they enlarged the hole and squeezed through into a series of underground chambers. Holding their oil lamp high in the darkness, they saw walls and ceilings covered in animals: horses, bulls, deer, bison, rhinoceroses, bears, a bird, a unicorn-like creature, and one puzzling human figure. The animals moved and breathed in the lamplight, painted with such skill and such understanding of animal anatomy and motion that the boys initially thought they might be from the Middle Ages. They were approximately 17,000 years old. Lascaux has been called the Sistine Chapel of prehistory. The cave complex contains more than 600 paintings and nearly 500 engravings covering approximately 100 meters of passages. The animals are rendered with an understanding of form, movement, and perspective that is stunning in the context of what we think we know about the cognitive capabilities of late Paleolithic humans. Horses gallop and rear. Aurochs charge. The swimming deer crossing a river are shown from above, their antlers overlapping. A pregnant mare's belly swells convincingly. Whoever painted these images was not working from a simple catalogue of known shapes, but was observing, understanding, and representing the natural world with genuine artistic intelligence. How these images were made, who made them, why, and what they meant remains among the most profound questions in human prehistory. The painters used pigments ground from iron oxides and manganese dioxide, applied with fingers, pads, and what appear to have been brushes or blowpipes for spray painting. They worked in underground darkness, by lamplight, on surfaces that they could not see in any overall plan from a single vantage point. What they were doing, in the depths of the earth, for what purpose, remains a genuine mystery. The images at Lascaux are not primarily decorative. They are not in the habitation areas where people lived and moved. They are in the deepest, most inaccessible parts of the cave system. Someone went into the dark, went deep, and made something that was not meant to be casually seen. Whatever they were doing, it was important. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we go further, if you are finding this investigation compelling, please take a moment right now to like this video, drop a comment below with your thoughts, and share it with someone who loves a good historical mystery. If you are watching on YouTube, hit subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss a new episode. If you found us through Facebook, tap follow on our page. It takes just a few seconds, and it genuinely helps us keep making these documentaries. Now, let us get back to the investigation. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Archaeology is, by its nature, an incomplete science. We find only what survives, and what survives is determined not by importance, but by durability. Stone lasts, wood rots, metal corrodes, ceramics endure. The written word survives only if it is inscribed on stone or baked clay. Papyrus and vellum are hostages to humidity and fire. This means that every picture of the past, assembled from archaeological evidence, is a distortion, biased toward the materials that happen to last rather than the activities that define the culture. With that cave in place, the structures that do survive from the ancient world are sometimes inexplicable by any conventional model of the societies that built them. We find stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons fitted together with tolerances measured in millimeters, transported from quarries dozens of kilometers away, and raised to heights that challenge modern cranes. We find astronomical alignments so precise that they track the movements of specific stars over periods of thousands of years. We find architectural proportions that embed mathematical ratios, pi, phi, the Pythagorean theorem, in civilizations that supposedly had no formal mathematics. The challenge these structures pose is not engineering alone. It is conceptual. How did people without our tools conceive of projects on this scale? How did they solve the organizational problems of feeding and coordinating tens of thousands of workers over decades? How did they transmit technical knowledge across generations without standardized notation? The buildings stand as proof that they did it. The question of how remains genuinely open. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the discovery of Lascaux, how teenage boys found the greatest cave art on Earth, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The cave at Lascaux was opened to the public in 1948 and quickly became one of France's most popular tourist attractions, receiving up to 200 visitors per day. Within 15 years, the combination of human breath, which increased CO2 and heat, artificial lighting, and the introduction of microorganisms from outside the cave had triggered a catastrophic bloom of green algae and then white calcite deposits on the cave walls, obscuring and destroying some of the paintings. The cave was closed to the public in 1963, just 15 years after opening. It remains closed today, with access restricted to a tiny number of researchers who follow strict contamination control protocols. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the Lascaux paintings are dated to approximately 17,000–15,000 BCE, the Magdalenian period of the Upper Paleolithic. Through radiocarbon dating of organic pigment binders, charcoal lamps found in the cave, and the stratigraphic context of associated artifacts. This dating makes them roughly contemporaneous with other major Upper Paleolithic cave art sites in France and Spain. The Altamira caves in Spain are approximately 14,000–20,000 years old, confirming that Lascaux represents part of a broader cultural phenomenon of cave art production in southwestern Europe during the late Paleolithic. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the Hall of the Bulls, Sal del Toro, the largest chamber in the Lascaux complex, contains some of the most impressive paintings, including aurochs, wild cattle, up to 5 meters in length, among the largest cave paintings known anywhere in the world. The space in the Hall of the Bulls is large enough to suggest it may have served as a gathering or ceremonial space, and the painting's arrangement, with large animals apparently in motion, creates an immersive environment particularly striking in lamplight. The scale of the hall's paintings required scaffolding for their upper portions. Post holes in the cave floor provide evidence that wooden supports were used by the painters. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the scene of the dead man, the puits, or well, located in a deep shaft accessible only by descending a rope or wooden ladder, is Lascaux's most enigmatic image. It shows a figure, clearly human, but schematically drawn, the only human figure in the cave, lying on his back, with a bird perched on a staff beside him, facing a bison that appears to have been eviscerated and whose intestines are hanging out. To the left is a rhinoceros apparently walking away. The scene has been interpreted as a hunting accident, a shamanic ritual death and transformation narrative, or a totemic myth. The deep location of the shaft suggests it was a special, ritually significant space within the cave. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the multi-species character of Lascaux's paintings. The cave Cantai. NS horses estimated 60% of figures, deer 13%, aurochs 9%, bison 4-5%, ibexes 4%, felines 4%, rhinoceroses, bears, and others, has been analyzed for what it might reveal about Paleolithic ecology and human relationships with animals. The predominance of horses is consistent with Lascaux being in a region where wild horses were abundant. However, the specific selection of species does not perfectly mirror what archaeologists find in the food-refused deposits at Lascaux period habitation sites, suggesting the animals depicted were not primarily chosen for their dietary importance, but for other reasons, possibly totemic, spiritual, or narrative. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: access to Lascaux for research is now managed by the Lascaux Scientific Committee and requires specific justification and strict contamination protocols. Since the 1980s, a fungal infection, Fusarium solani, has required periodic intervention with biocidal treatments that are themselves potentially damaging to the paintings. The conservation challenge at Lascaux is one of the most complex in cultural heritage management. The images are 17,000 years old and survived natural conditions for that entire period. But 15 years of tourist access and subsequent contamination has created conservation challenges that may ultimately be beyond resolution. A replica cave, Lascaux Roman II, opened 1983, located 200 meters from the original, allows visitors to experience a reproduction of the most important sections. A comprehensive digital reproduction, Lascaux Roman IV, opened 2016, provides an even more detailed visitor experience. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the discovery of Lascaux, how teenage boys found the greatest cave art on Earth. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the hunting magic theory, proposed by the French anthropologist Henri Breuil in the early 20th century, held that the cave paintings were created as sympathetic magic, images of animals made to ensure success in the hunt. Under this model, making an image of an animal gave the hunter power over the animal or attracted the animal to the hunt. Breuil's theory was dominant for decades. It has since been largely rejected because the animals depicted at Lascaux do not correspond well with the animals most frequently hunted by the same people. The dietary evidence from habitation sites shows different species proportions, and because many paintings are in locations so deep and inaccessible that they could not have served as the focus of pre-hunt ritual in any practical sense. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the shamanic ritual theory, developed by archaeologist David Lewis Williams based on cross-cultural analysis of trance states and rock art, proposes that the cave paintings were created by individuals in altered states of consciousness, shamanic practitioners who entered the caves and the darkness as a way of accessing the spirit world, and who painted what they saw in their visions on the cave walls as records of their journeys. The geometric patterns that occur alongside the animal figures at Lascaux and many other caves correspond to entoptic phenomena, visual patterns generated by the nervous system in altered states. This theory situates cave art in a context of spiritual practice rather than purely economic hunting function. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the narrative and social complexity theory, gaining support among recent researchers, proposes that the cave paintings represent not single-purpose magical or ritual acts, but complex narrative content, stories, myths, astronomical knowledge, or social information that the paintings encoded and preserved for a community. Under this model, the paintings were a form of communication and knowledge storage, as sophisticated in their way as writing, serving a community that relied on oral and visual tradition to maintain knowledge across generations. The apparent relationships between specific animal species at Lascaux and other cave sites, consistent patterns of animal association that may represent a mythological or cosmological schema, are evidence for this theory. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the discovery of Lascaux, how teenage boys found the greatest cave art on Earth, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the paintings themselves, their technical quality, their distribution in the cave, their species composition, and their relationship to adjacent paintings provide the primary evidence for understanding their purpose and context. The use of natural cave contours to give three-dimensionality to painted figures, a horse's haunch molded by a natural rock bulge, a bull's head fitted into a concavity, demonstrates conscious artistic intention rather than random application of pigment. The spatial organization of the whole of the bulls, with large animals arranged in apparent motion, creates an intentional visual environment suggesting deliberate planning of the overall composition. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented portable art objects, carved bones, ivory figurines, engraved stones, found in archaeological deposits associated with the Lascaux period, demonstrate that the cognitive and artistic capabilities visible in the cave art were part of a broader tradition of image-making in late Paleolithic culture, not an isolated phenomenon. The portable art provides comparative material for understanding the conventions and symbols used in the cave art and confirms that Lascaux-type artistic production was widespread rather than an anomalous local development. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed evidence for artificial lighting in the Lascaux cave, stone lamps with vegetable fiber wicks and animal fat found throughout the cave complex, some in their original positions, confirms that the paintings were created and presumably viewed by lamplight in total underground darkness. The implications for understanding the cave art experience are significant. The paintings were not made in ambient light, but in small pools of warm yellow flame in profound darkness, an experience fundamentally different from viewing them in modern lighting conditions. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the discovery of Lascaux, how teenage boys found the greatest cave art on Earth. Now, we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Lascaux's influence on understanding of human cognitive evolution has been profound. The existence of cave art of this quality at 17,000 years ago confirms that fully modern human cognition, including symbolic thinking, aesthetic judgment, and advanced representation, was present in anatomically modern humans for at least this long, and probably considerably longer. The oldest known cave art, at La Pasiega in Spain, is now dated to more than 6,500 years ago using uranium-thorium dating. The cognitive revolution that produced this art is now understood to be essentially coincident with the origin of anatomically modern humans rather than being a later development. Lascaux's conservation crisis has been one of the driving cases for the development of digital reproduction technologies in cultural heritage management. The comprehensive digital scanning and photogrammetric documentation of the cave, combined with the Lascaux Roman IV replica center, has provided a model for making inaccessible heritage sites available to the public without physical damage. Similar approaches have been applied to other fragile heritage sites worldwide. From Stonehenge, which no longer allows public access to the stone circle itself, to the Altamira caves in Spain, which reopened on a limited basis in 2014 with carefully managed visit or numbers. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the discovery of Lascaux, how teenage boys found the greatest cave art on Earth. From the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Lascaux ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please help us reach more people. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new documentary. If you are watching on Facebook, tap the follow button on our page to stay connected. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.